If someone asked you to describe a strange animal, you would probably think of creatures with huge eyes, unusual body shapes, or striking colors. But it is quite unlikely that a distinctive nose would be an element to appear in your description, isn't it? However, despite not being very well known and often going unnoticed, there are many animals in our world that stand out precisely for having an unusual nose, whether because of its shape, size, or the curious functions it can perform. And it is with exactly that in mind that we gathered a list of some of them to present in today's video. Star-nosed mole. Subterranean animals normally have poor eyesight. However, few of them manage to compensate for this, as well as the star-nosed mole. This is because, since this species lives in dark and flooded tunnels, its vision is practically useless. But in exchange, years of evolution transformed its nose into a true sensory organ of extremely high precision. This unusual mole can be found inhabiting humid regions of the United States and Canada, and immediately stands out thanks to its star-shaped nose, which has 22 fleshy and pink appendages covered with thousands of highly sensitive tactile receptors capable of detecting microscopic textures instantly. In this way, although it is functionally blind, the star-nosed mole is able to identify and capture its prey, using only its highly refined hearing and sense of smell. To conclude, if the distinctive appearance of the star-nosed mole were not already more than enough to consider it a truly strange animal, individuals of this species are also capable of smelling underwater, considering that they can exhale air bubbles onto objects or scent trails, and then inhale those bubbles to bring the odors back to the nose. Saiga. Known for its rather exotic appearance, the saiga is a species of antelope that inhabits the steppes and plains of Central Asia and is mainly recognized for its distinctive and curved nose, which makes it one of the most easily recognizable animals in the animal kingdom. However, despite its unusual and even somewhat funny appearance, this strange nose performs important functions for the animal's life and survival, considering that it acts as a natural filter for the dusty air of the steppes, allowing the saiga to breathe calmly even in adverse conditions, while during the winter months, the cold air is warmed as it passes through this long nose before entering the lungs, allowing the saiga to breathe without problems, even in extremely low temperatures. Pig-nosed turtle. Found in murky tropical rivers of Australia and New Guinea, the pig-nosed turtle is a freshwater species that receives this name precisely because it has an elongated snout, with the nostrils positioned at the tip, very similar to a pig's nose, and which functions as a small breathing tube, allowing the animal to breathe by exposing only the tip of its nose above the water. In this way, this mechanism reduces the need for the turtle to fully surface, saving energy and reducing exposure to predators, which is an adaptation that perfectly matches its behavior, considering that the pig-nosed turtle is an active swimmer equipped with wide flippers, and that usually remains at the bottom of rivers searching for fruits, leaves, and small invertebrates. Proboscis monkey. Now let's talk about the proboscis monkey, a truly unique and impressive primate, endemic to the tropical forests of Borneo and mainly known for its peculiar appearance, being easily recognized by its large and prominent nose, which can exceed 10 centimeters in length in males, while females and juveniles have smaller and less striking noses. It is believed that this distinctive nose is not only a remarkable physical trait, but also plays a crucial role in attracting females and in communication within the group, so that males with larger noses tend to attract more females and dominate social groups, in addition to the belief that this enlarged nose amplifies the vocal sounds that these animals produce. These primates are arboreal animals, spending most of their time in trees, which helps them avoid predators. However, they are also excellent swimmers, being capable of diving and swimming with agility, a characteristic that is uncommon among primates. Aardvark. Found in Africa, the aardvark is a nocturnal and solitary animal with an unusual appearance that closely resembles a pig, with a robust body, an elongated head, and a cylindrical snout that ends in a disc shape. The aardvark is an animal that can travel up to 10 kilometers per night in search of food, and it feeds mainly on ants and termites that it identifies through its highly developed sense of smell, due to the fact that its long and flexible nose concentrates a large number of olfactory receptors capable of detecting odors that escape from the soil, even when there is no visible opening. In this way, only after confirming the presence of its prey in a certain location does this animal actually begin to dig, using its strong and sharp claws, which, in addition to allowing it to access hidden colonies, are also used to dig burrows in the ground that allow the animal to hide from predators. Hooded seal. Among the many existing seal species, few display such evident sexual dimorphism as the hooded seal. Found in cold regions of the North Atlantic, this species spends much of its time at sea, diving into deep waters to hunt fish, and has as its most unusual trait an elastic nasal sac, which can be seen over the snout of adult males during the breeding season, and which is capable of expanding when filled with air. During the reproductive season, several individuals gather on ice areas where males begin to compete for position. However, instead of immediately engaging in fights, they inflate this structure and vocalize repeatedly so that the air vibrates inside the nasal cavity and produces deep and powerful sounds that spread throughout the colony. In this way, since in this species the pitch of the sound is related to body size, other males are able to assess a rival from a distance, which reduces physical confrontations. However, in addition to this main sac, another characteristic that draws attention in this species is the presence of a reddish membrane located in one of the nostrils, which can be projected outward during display, functioning as a visual reinforcement at short range. Elephant. Well, it would be practically impossible to make a video about animals with different noses without mentioning elephants. This is because the trunk of these animals, which is the fusion between the nose and the upper lip, is formed by thousands of muscles that allow extremely precise movements, from uprooting a tree to picking up something small from the ground. In this way, in addition to performing basic functions such as breathing, smelling, and recognizing individuals by scent, this trunk also functions as the main tool for interacting with the environment, allowing these animals to use it to explore objects, collect water, and bring it to the mouth, or even paint works of art, as is the case with this elephant here. Truly fantastic, isn't it? Tube-nosed fruit bat. Found in tropical forests of New Guinea and nearby regions of Indonesia and Australia, the tube-nosed fruit bat is a species that, unlike the more famous bats, is not known for feeding on blood or hunting insects in the dark, but rather is a frugivorous species that spends the night searching for ripe fruits among the treetops, which makes its nose an important tool in this search. This is because in dense forest environments, where there is almost no wind and smells become diffuse, capturing the correct direction of a scent is a difficult task, and thus these elongated nostrils help separate minimal air currents, something equivalent to a biological directional sensor, which allows the animal to accurately detect where the smell of a fruit is coming from. Elephant shrew. Elephant shrews are small African mammals that are extremely fast, spending much of their time running along fixed paths between dry leaves and low shrubs, and during this movement these animals almost always keep their snout close to the ground, continuously touching and sniffing the path. This elongated and extremely flexible snout moves constantly and independently from the rest of the head, and with it these animals are able to examine small crevices, lift light debris, and follow the scent left by hidden insects, which is a very important characteristic, considering that since they do not have strong claws to dig into the soil, this behavior makes it possible to find small prey in accessible places without needing to spend much energy turning over the environment. Giant anteater. The giant anteater is a large mammal native to the open regions of South America, easily recognized by its elongated body, bushy tail, and extremely long snout, which is usually kept close to the ground, while the animal spends much of its time walking slowly and exploring areas in search of food. These animals feed mainly on ants and termites, insects that are small enough to be swallowed whole, which is something essential, since like any other anteater, this species also has no teeth, and thanks to this specialized snout, they are able to identify hidden anthills and termite mounds with ease before breaking open the nest with their claws and using their sticky tongue to pull the insects out from inside. Platypus. Very famous and well-known, the platypus can be defined as a true synonym of strangeness within the animal world, considering that it appears on practically any list of the strangest animals on the planet, and it is not difficult to understand why. This distinctive animal is a mammal that lays eggs, has a tail similar to that of a beaver, is venomous, and to conclude it, also has a specialized soft and fleshy snout that is extremely similar to a duck's bill, and which can be defined as an extremely sophisticated sensory organ, since it is filled with receptors capable of detecting electrical impulses generated by the muscle contraction of small aquatic invertebrates. In this way, even if it closes its eyes, ears, and nostrils when entering the water, the platypus is still able to continue hunting. This happens because each muscle contraction of aquatic insects, worms, or crustaceans generates small electric fields in the water, and thus thanks to this specialized snout, the platypus is able to detect and capture them, even without seeing absolutely anything. Lowland streaked tenrec. Found only in Madagascar, the lowland streaked tenrec is a small mammal that immediately draws attention due to its distinctive appearance, with a body in black and yellow tones covered in spines that serve for physical defense, as well as a narrow and rather unusual-looking snout that helps the animal find food such as worms and insects. Active both during the day and at night, the lowland streaked tenrec usually lives in family groups of up to 20 individuals and digs shallow tunnels in the moist forest soil, where it spends much of its time turning over leaves. And during the breeding season, females usually have large litters, often between 5 and 10 offspring, which shortly after being born are already able to follow the adults through the ground vegetation. Elephant seal. Among the largest carnivorous mammals on the planet, few are as impressive as elephant seals, which can exceed several tons in weight and possess a gigantic size, but which also stand out for displaying a rather peculiar feature in adult males: a large fleshy and inflatable structure over the snout, resembling a small trunk, which is precisely the origin of the name elephant seal for these animals. This structure is not related to feeding or everyday breathing, but instead gains importance mainly during the breeding season, when hundreds of these animals gather on beaches in a period in which males compete for territory and access to females. However, instead of directly engaging in physical confrontations, they first resort to sound, and when inflating this trunk, the air vibrates inside the nasal cavity and produces extremely deep and powerful vocalizations that spread over great distances. In this way, since the size and depth of the sound are directly linked to the size of the individual, other males are able to assess a rival just by listening, and thus many disputes end before there is even physical contact. Pinocchio frog. Recently discovered in the mountainous forests of New Guinea, this small amphibian, popularly known as the Pinocchio frog, received this nickname immediately due to the fact that it possesses a thin and flexible appendage that extends from the tip of its snout. In males, this structure usually remains short, but it extends when the animal is active or agitated, especially during interactions with other individuals, and although it does not improve the sense of smell nor help with breathing, it functions as a visual signal, and thus, while vocalizing, these animals are also able to make their presence known with this extension of the snout, which helps reinforce communication at short range. Goblin shark. Inhabiting the great ocean depths, the goblin shark is a rare species that lives in regions where light barely reaches, and it has an appearance that draws attention right away, with a pinkish body, thin teeth, and a long and flattened snout, which projects well in front of the head and holds great importance in the life of these animals. This is because in a dark environment where seeing does not help much, the main way to locate food and detect life around becomes this structure at the front of the head, which is filled with sensory receptors capable of perceiving electric fields generated by the muscles of other animals, and which allows the goblin shark to identify the position of prey even if they are buried in the sand or completely outside its visual range. Echidnas. Echidnas are rare mammals, native to Australia and New Guinea, which together with the platypus form the group of monotremes, the only living animals known to lay eggs and feed their young through lactation. However, in addition to this unique and remarkable characteristic, echidnas also stand out for having a robust body covered with spines and an extremely elongated and tubular snout, a shape that is directly linked to their feeding behavior. This is because these animals search for worms and other invertebrates buried in moist soil, and to find them they keep the tip of their nose constantly pressed against the ground. In this way, this snout, which concentrates sensory receptors capable of detecting odors and small movements below the surface, allows these animals to locate their prey even before they begin to dig. Tapir. Recognized for its robust body and for holding the title of the largest terrestrial mammal in South America, the tapir is a fascinating animal that, in addition to its physical size, also stands out for possessing a small mobile trunk formed by the fusion of the nose and the upper lip, similar to that of elephants but smaller in size. This structure is quite flexible and functions almost like a short hand, so that while walking through dense vegetation, the animal uses it to pull leaves, reach low fruits, and select specific parts of plants before eating, at the same time that it allows it to detect the presence of other individuals or possible threats. To conclude, another curious behavior of these animals related to this distinctive snout is the fact that it is also common to see tapirs entering the water to cool off or hide, and leaving only the tip of the nose outside while they breathe, which can be defined as a simply brilliant strategy. Gharial. Many people tend to confuse crocodiles and alligators. After all, the body and head shape of these animals are indeed quite similar. However, all this confusion almost never happens with the gharial, and the reason lies precisely in the snout of these animals, which is extremely long and thin, very different from the wide and robust pattern of other crocodilians. The most interesting part of all is that this shape does not only create an unusual appearance, but also serves as a direct adaptation to the type of prey these animals capture, considering that since gharials live in large rivers of southern Asia and feed almost exclusively on fish, when moving their head within these rivers, this narrow snout displaces little water and practically creates no turbulence, allowing these animals to approach schools of fish without alerting them, in addition to also enabling rapid movements that are essential for successful capture. Golden snub-nosed monkey. Found in the mountains of central China, the golden snub-nosed monkey is a distinctive primate known for its intense orange fur and its bluish-gray face. However, another striking detail that can be seen on the face of these animals refers to their extremely short and upturned nose, with nostrils facing forward, and which is a characteristic directly linked to the environment in which they live. Unlike most tropical primates, this species spends much of the year in cold regions, often covered in snow and with freezing temperatures. In this way, a long snout would be highly exposed to the icy air, increasing heat loss and the risk of tissue damage. To conclude, another very interesting curiosity about this primate is that many people say that it is afraid of rain. However, what really happens is that due to the unusual shape of this nose, water often ends up entering through the nostrils and thus can cause some complications, such as sneezing, for example. Horned anole. And to conclude, let's talk about the horned anole, a small lizard native to the humid forests of Ecuador, and that immediately draws attention from anyone who comes across one of these animals, due to a thin and flexible extension projected above its snout, which resembles a small forward-facing horn. This species feeds on insects that it captures directly with its mouth through quick and precise movements, and contrary to what many people think, this appendage does not interfere with this process, nor does it participate in the direct defense of the animal, but instead has a function related to visual communication. And what about you? Which animal had the most surprising and fantastic snout on this list? Leave it there in the comments which one impressed you the most. And if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the content we bring here. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.